give yourself and others grace. For years, I've been such a perfectionist. You know, I don't turn in a project until it's completely done, or I'm not going to make this call until I have everything done, or I, get upset with myself if things didn't go perfectly. And I had to remind myself, you can't live like that anymore.
Tulsa Talks is the podcast that is inspiring people to have everyday meaningful conversations to gain perspective and help the world.
Welcome to Tulsa Talks. We have the honor of having Chandan in the studio today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So tell us what you do for a living now that you're not on the news.
I do a lot. My family and I have 4 companies combined.
Okay.
One of the companies is cleaning. We do commercial and residential. One is makeup artistry. So I'm a makeup artist and I sell makeup and skincare. And then my husband is a DJ. So he DJs for galas, weddings, special events, private parties. And then I also have a marketing and media consulting company based on my 13 years of TV experience.
Okay. What percentage of your time are allotted for each one of these 4?
My main one is my marketing and media consulting business. Mm-hmm. But I probably work more than the average person as well. It's definitely not a 40-hour day week.
How many hours would you say you work?
Gosh, 60 easily. But I enjoy what I do. I don't clock my hours. I work maybe really hard on one day, 12, 13 hours, but then the next day I'm on vacation. So it's nice when you're, when you run your own business.
Yeah. Some people get enthralled with their business and they work 80 plus hours a week, just almost grueling to them. You've not found that. You've not allowed that to happen.
No, I believe in hard work, but I also believe you gotta enjoy life, And it's okay to have a mixture of both, and it's okay to not have a perfect balance, especially when you're starting out your business. But I think my husband and I have done a really good job of working hard when we need to work hard. If we have some projects due, some clients that need special attention, let's work really hard to get them what they need by that deadline. And then when you have some downtime, which we're pretty good at time management, of scheduling our vacations ahead of time and knowing when we're on vacation, this is our time to go on vacation. And, we'll take calls as needed if we're on vacation in emergencies, but when we're on vacation, it's nice to be on vacation. And I let all my clients know I will be out of town. Don't contact me unless it's an emergency. And, if you have good clients, and your ideal client should respect when you're in office or out of office.
Yeah, and if they're not an ideal client, you have the ability to fire them.
Exactly, and I talk about that a lot too. When I first started having a business, of course, like everyone else, you feel vulnerable and you just want to have clients, right? You just want to take on clients. But you have to really think about who is your ideal client and what your boundaries are and make sure that client knows what your boundaries are. And if they don't respect that boundary, you're just not for them and they're not for you, and that's okay. That's why there are tons of people who do similar things to what you do, right? And so there is someone out there for everyone, but I always stress that you're not for everyone and not everyone is for you. An ideal client for you is not everyone. And I think a lot of businesses, again, especially when you first start out, make that mistake that they just want to throw something at the wall and hope that it sticks rather than seeking that ideal client and having just a certain number of those ideal clients only rather than so many, and you're trying to juggle everything and meet their needs and be someone you're not, It comes down to quality, not quantity.
Yeah. Yeah. So describe an ideal client for yourself.
My ideal client.
And what you do in the marketing realm.
Sure. So with my marketing media company, I help clients shape their stories and share their stories. So my ideal client is either a person, a business, or nonprofit that wants to grow their business and is open to sharing their stories and being a face for their company as well. I've had clients who come to me and say, I want to grow, but I don't want my face on TV, or I don't want to share too much about me. I really want to keep it about business. I'm probably not your ideal person to work with because I really want to get personal with you. I want to know you and your family personally. And I also want your ideal clients to know you and why you do what you do and what makes you stand out from your competition.
Why is that relevant to know the person that has the business instead of just knowing the business?
Because studies have shown people support people they know, like, and trust. So if people only know you as a company, know your name, know your colors, know your logo, but they don't know you, they don't know who they're supporting, they don't know why you do what you do, they don't know how you came to this location that you are, as in all the obstacles that you had to overcome to get to where you are, to finally have this business that you've worked so hard for, that you dreamed of, that you watched your parents, possibly working so hard for something that they weren't able to reach. And now finally you're able to fulfill your family's goal or something like that. People love to support people, but they can't support you if they don't know you. You know what I mean?
I do. And that leads to the next question. Who are you? And how do you have the ability to help your people do what they do? Why do you enjoy telling people stories?
Yeah, people ask me all the time, what are you? What do you do? And in simple terms, I'm a storyteller. I've been a storyteller since I was a young girl, and I just love people and telling their stories. When I was young, my parents always said that ever since I could start talking, I would talk anyone and everyone's ears off. I would come up to strangers and just start talking to them. And so my parents knew that I would someday do something that would involve talking. They're like, you're either going to be a lawyer because you like to talk in the courtroom, or a storyteller. And I was born in Vietnam. At the age of 4, my family had the ability to move from Vietnam to Oklahoma City because my dad was a Vietnamese soldier who served in the South Vietnamese military during the Vietnam War. So after the war, he served in the military for 15 years. And after the war in 1975, he was captured by communists and went to prison because communists, the new government, considered him to be an enemy because he fought against them. He fought as an ally with U.S. troops. Yeah.
I can understand how they would think that he was the enemy. He fought against them. That kind of defines what the enemy is, right?
Right. And so, of course, he was devastated. He was a prisoner of war in his own country for almost 10 years. And there's one thing that my late father has taught me many, many things. But one of the biggest things I would say he taught me was faith. People can take away your money, your homes, your title, even your family, but one thing they cannot take from you is your faith. And so, of course, during the war, people would flee. He lost everything when the war ended and he became a prisoner of war. He even lost his family. His wife left him, and he was very obviously heartbroken and traumatized in prison, but he knew that his faith would get him through being a prisoner.
His faith in what?
God. My father was a devout Catholic.
Okay.
I'm a devout Catholic, or at least I strive to be. And so he would pray the rosary silently every day while he was in prison because he couldn't practice his faith out loud. And so while his comrades and people he fought alongside were dying left and right in prison because of starvation, because of sickness, because of lack of hope. They became hopeless. He just held on to his faith that he knew that he would get out of prison and that he had a reason. He didn't know at the time what the reason would be, but he knew that God had better plans for him, that he would survive being a prisoner of war. And once he got out of prison, he would figure out what God's plan was for him. And he spent almost 10 years as a prisoner of war. When he got out, that's when he met my mother. And they fell in love, and we were very poor. And I remember growing up in Vietnam, we had nothing.
How far back do you remember?
I actually remember very vividly, probably as young as easily 3 years old. And people are always shocked that I have such a vivid memory.
So you remember 1 year of it, basically, because you moved here when you were 4.
Yep. Almost 5. I was almost 5.
Okay.
But I think I remembered everything so vividly because I intentionally tried to keep every memory because I didn't know if I would ever see my family again. I didn't know if our separation would be a permanent thing. So we were very poor. I grew up in a house made out of mud and banana leaves. And we never even had a home of our own that was shared with a family member. We didn't even have roads to drive on. We had to get from place to place. It was by a paddle boat to get us from one end of the neighborhood to the other. We never owned a car, a moped, or anything like that. We had one bicycle that my father would pedal around me and my mom to go to the grocery store. Anywhere was a bike for all 3 of us. And so my parents really did everything they could to make ends meet. They have taught me so much about hard work and determination and the value of family. And so when I was 4, my father got word that he was approved to move to the United States because he was an ally to the U.S. It was called Humanitarian Operation, HO. It was legislation that U.S. Congress had passed at the time. And we were so excited. We were like, wow.
And Vietnam just automatically accepted this for you guys to move?
Well, it was up to the U.S. You have to go through an application and interview process to see whether you're a candidate.
Right. Yeah, but the Vietnamese government was fine with you guys leaving the country. No problem.
No problem. No. I'm very grateful that things really did ease up. And I've been back to Vietnam 10 times. No issues. They don't care that I used to live in Vietnam and that now I'm a U.S. citizen. No, I feel very safe when I go to Vietnam. I'm very grateful that things have changed drastically. Yeah.
My wife and I have a man that we know that's in his early 30s, about your age, and he calls us his American parents. Aww. And we had no idea how Vietnam was allowing people to travel in and out of it for the last good while now. And a lot of people that are viewing probably don't know that either. Yeah,
I agree. People, especially maybe Vietnamese people who fled the war in the 70s and came here, a lot of them have chosen not to come back because of fear, or they just don't know whether there's anything for them to come back to. And of course, that's everybody's personal decision based on your history of the war and whether you have family there or whether you feel comfortable. But I will tell you, I've been back 10 times. I've never felt unsafe there. I really enjoy coming back and, relearning some of my culture, spending time with family. I still have a lot of family there.
Yeah. Hugh actually moved back to Vietnam 2 years ago.
Yeah. There you go.
We still stay in touch on Messenger, and he plans to come here, and we plan to go there one day, hopefully sometime this year or next year.
You should. It is a beautiful place and such great diversity of terrain and food and culture because, Vietnam just has so much influence from the Chinese, the French, and of course, the Americans. So when you go there, you really see such a wide variety of influences between the foods and the architecture, art, things like that. I would go back to Vietnam every year if I could.
It's a long trip.
It's a long trip. 24
hours roughly, 30 hours, something like that
between
on the
24 and 36, depending on, your flight patterns and things like that. We're always very strategic on how we get there, like when we leave and what time we get there so we can make the most of the days.
Yeah. You need to be there probably 2 weeks to be able to justify that long of a trip, right?
I never go less than 2 weeks because of the cost and it's just not worth it. But ideally, a month would be ideal because Vietnam just has so many places that you could go visit and make the most of your time there. A month would be ideal. But I know not everybody can take off a month. Just like when I used to have, a full-time job working for someone else, 2 weeks was all I ever got off. And especially working in TV news for 13 years, that's really all I had. So, and I made the most of it.
So I'm going to spring a little surprise on you. I hope that it's okay.
Sure.
Take me through an experience of how you would help me. Hey, Chinh, I want you to help me market our company. What would be our next step?
Well, we would first have a 20-minute complimentary discovery meeting, whether in person or Zoom. I always prefer in person. But of course, if it's a national client long distance, then we do Zoom. I always prefer, at least I can see your face. So I don't want just a phone call. I really want a Zoom or FaceTime or something where we can see each other's eyes and expressions and things like that. And that in the 20 minutes, we talk about, okay, tell me about your company, your business. What made you start this company or business? Or is it a nonprofit that you started? Or if it's a person and you're not a company or business, what is this endeavor that you're wanting me to help you grow? Is it you want to be, a motivational speaker? Do you want to write a book? Do you want to be an expert in whatever field? Whatever it is, tell me what is it, how you got there, what made you want to pursue this? And then what are your goals? What are your goals for this year, next year, long term? And then we go from there. Also, what is your budget and your timeline? We need to know those things to divide it up into realistic goals.
So I need to tell you what my budget is before you can tell me what your performance would be, or do you tell me what it would take to be able to do my vision?
Kind of a little bit of both, because, I help people with marketing strategies on TV, on radio, on billboards, on podcasts, in magazines, on newspapers, right? Some of those cost money, like a billboard or a radio ad or whatever the case may be. So I need to know what your budget is. And if that's one of your goals, and I can say, hey, your budget of $200 is not going to get you a billboard. Sorry, bud. You know what I mean? Yeah. That kind of thing.
Yeah. So we have the Complete Peace movement, which Tulsa Talks is under its umbrella.
Okay.
And my vision for it is to basically just help people connect to themselves and their surroundings better.
Okay.
Through our website presence, doing street talks, launching housing for homeless, have addiction recovery services, just a wide gamut.
Okay.
And this is one little part of what we're doing. And we plan to not only do it in Tulsa, but the reason we call Tulsa Talks and Tulsa Street Talks, that is because it's complete peace, that for this city. When we go to another city, we will do complete peace Chattanooga, Tennessee Talks, possibly, because I have family there. And then maybe Houston Talks, because I have family there and connections. How would you help us launch it? What would be the next step for us to take?
Well, so first of all, I would say you need to narrow it down on what you want me to help you with, because that's a lot all at once.
Yes, I want you to help public awareness, help us get public awareness. About what we're doing as far as the Complete Peace movement being an accessible tool for all people to find their place in life.
Okay, narrow that down some more.
It's almost an alternative to a brick and mortar church that we're taking to the streets.
Okay, narrow down some more.
Help me.
Okay, so what I do when I talk to my clients and once they become a client is I say, I want you to write down, what is your story? Don't overthink it. What
is my story, or what is the reason for our business? Because that's not where we're going. You were asking me about what our company is going to do.
Correct. But your story, a good business, is based on your story, right?
My story is, the reason why we're doing this is different than what we're doing. So the reason I'm doing this, which you didn't ask, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm talking to my younger self. I've seen people that are 35 to 45 years old and they don't know what they want to do with their life. I've seen people that are 70 years old, they don't know what they wish they had. I want to help myself, which you may know this or might not think this, but I think that we're all connected.
Absolutely. I don't think anybody would deny that.
And some people would.
Oh, I think everything's intertwined.
Okay.
From humans to earth to water, everything. We're all interconnected. We rely on each other.
And with that being said, a lot of people are hurting right now.
Right.
And when one hurts, all hurt. How am I going to help, and why am I going to help? Because I was hurting. And I've been shown the 10 stages of life and the 10 keys to the kingdom, which are very easily accessible, and you can apply anything that in your life or your surroundings into this platform. And why am I doing this? Again, I'm speaking to my younger self, maybe a less mature self, no matter how old that person is. And if somebody thinks they're more mature to me and they don't need anything that I have, that's fine. That's not who I'm talking to. I'm talking to somebody that wants help. There are homeless, there are addicts, there are convicts, there are people that are struggling in myriad ways of life. There are people that will say, I am a sinner and I'll always be a sinner. And I say that there is a way to be transformed from the me-isms and the we-isms to live from the I am perspective, which, why am I doing this? Because I love people.
Yeah, so that's your story. So you need to be sharing that story. So when people say, what do you do? I think
what do you do and why do you do it are two different things.
Correct. And so I was getting into that because this is our first time having a conversation about this. Yeah. So you just have to have a conversation with people and explain to them what you do. Meet key players in the community that will help you with your goal.
Yeah. And we are, through doing what we're doing here. We've had 80 people. One of them was a 20-year congressman, 8 years in Oklahoma City, 12 years in D.C., says that he loves what we're doing and wants to help us launch. 90% of the people that come through here say they want to help us launch. My question is, how would you help us launch?
So that's part of my marketing strategy that I would not feel comfortable sharing with the world.
Okay.
Now, if you were to become my client or any of my clients, that's when we have our meeting to go over it.
Okay.
Yeah. But to just tell you.
A lot of people give vague brushstrokes that help people gain access into wanting what they do.
No, nothing I do is fake. Everything I do is intentional. And that's why I don't feel comfortable just releasing it out in the world. And everybody's different. So with you, I would need to get to know you more before I just say, here's what we're going to do.
Sure.
And anybody who can tell somebody that, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people can answer that question vaguely.
Yeah, I don't do vague.
You don't do vague,
No.
Hypothetical, none of that.
No.
You have intentional, that's the way you live, that's the only way that you'll do it, and I get that.
And I back it up with data and numbers. So that's why I'm not going to give you an answer right now without me researching.
Yeah, I thought maybe you could go generally speaking, but you did give us general. You told us that you want to help people by engaging with them, and that's what you've done so far, was asking me what we did, and then we got around to why do I do it? And then after that little bit of a discovery time, then you would take that and you would assess it.
And do more research. Yep.
And then you would give recommendation of how we could make the next step.
Yep. And my recommendations would be short-term, long-term, and then again, based on your budget and your goals. We don't know. I don't really know your budget and your goals yet.
Yeah.
I mean, your goal is to spread.
The goal is to have it in many cities, and our budget is reasonably good.
Right. See, reasonably good. I don't know what that is. Yeah. So without knowing your exact, like an actual number over X amount of time, then we divide up that based on what we can do.
Okay. So how many customers have you had in the last, you say you've been doing this for a year and a half? How many customers?
Oh, no. A year and a half. I'm not sure what.
How long have you been?
That's how long I've been married, a year and a half.
Okay. How long have you been doing your business?
So I just 4 months.
Okay.
Because I left TV news 4 months ago.
Okay. I thought it had been longer than that.
No, I did TV news for 13 years.
Yes.
I left TV news
I get it.
4 months ago and then launched my business.
Yeah. I thought you had been in business longer than that.
I've been a business owner for longer than that
But
with
not
my
in
other
this
companies,
business.
my marketing companies.
Okay.
Only 4 months old.
Wow. So how did you learn to do this marketing?
Through running my businesses. Yeah.
Okay. So you're applying principles that you learned in your other businesses, marketing them, and you've had some success with those, I suppose?
Yeah, I would say so. They're on TV. They're exactly where they want to be. We're reaching their goals. Yeah.
How many customers have you had so far going through this 4 months?
About a dozen.
That's a good start.
Oh, it's a great start. And I don't want to grow too fast. So.
You said that you don't do everything yourself for your business. You have some people that you outsource to
Correct.
help in certain fields.
Correct.
How did you meet those people? How do you meet people? How do you find people that need what you do?
Networking. Yeah. They're all people I've worked with before. So I trust them, and we're each other's referral partners.
What kind of customers do you want again? You may have already said it. I'm sure you did.
People, businesses, or nonprofits that are looking to grow their business through storytelling strategies.
So not necessarily any one market or industry.
Nope. Everybody has the potential to grow, regardless if you're a contractor, regardless if you're a motivational speaker. Everybody has potential to grow, but the number one thing is they have to want to grow and be willing to make changes. Those are the two things I ask clients first. One, are you wanting to grow and ready to grow? Because I've had people come to me and they wanted, I want my social media to go viral, and I'm sitting, I'm like, to be honest with you, you're not ready to grow. So what are you going to do when
How do you tell if they're ready to grow or not?
I do an audit of their things, of their business.
What their business structure is, what the capacity is.
Yeah. And that's so important. I think that's what makes me stand out from other marketing people out there too. I mean, there are people who strictly maybe do just social media content management or whatever. That's great. But I think it's so important. I approach marketing from like a holistic approach, right? I see it as a whole. I evaluate what's your capacity? How much money are you making? What's your goal and things like that? And are you going to be overwhelmed when something goes viral and people are contacting you for your services or products and you can't meet that? I mean, that's the last thing you would want.
Yeah, you disappoint a lot of people real fast that way.
You can disappoint people, and then your name
is ruined.
Is ruined because you underpromised. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you overpromised and underdelivered.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I know everybody can want to go viral or want their business to grow. But
people like to be seen, heard, and appreciated.
Yeah, but you got to be ready for that.
You have to be ready to be seen and heard, so you're not unappreciated or disliked because you've made promises that you couldn't keep.
Yep, and I mean the same I've done with my business in the last 4 months that I've been full time. I don't shout to the world what I do. I've been very intentional about who I'm even willing to have a discovery call with. Because one, I'm not going to just have a discovery call with anybody and everybody. Yeah. That takes time from me running my business.
That's why I was asking a while ago, who are you going to allow to approach you?
Yeah. For me, it's not a specific
industry. It's not a specific type. It's just, how do you determine which ones you're wanting to receive their calls?
Well, I do research on them first. Let's say you contact me and I say, hey, give me some information about you.
Okay, so you do allow that first step of contact.
Yeah. I take questions first, and then I kind of get to know you first. I do my own independent research on you.
Seems like that takes some time.
It does. But just like anything, like when you're trying to figure out your ideal client and figure out your market, it takes time.
Okay, do you plan to narrow the niche some later?
Maybe. It depends on how fast I want to grow. And it also depends on if I want to later take on some staff, Right now, I like being on my own. But if it ends up being neat and I need to add some staff members, maybe I will.
Yeah, and if you have staff when you take vacation, sometimes, depends on how your business is set, but a lot of times you don't get vacations.
I know. Sometimes people managing becomes your business.
Right, sure.
And that's why I've been hesitant about, hiring people on staff, My partnerships and the people I've worked with have been nice because they're their own business. I'm my own business. We set our own rules. Yeah. We take on clients as we want.
Yeah, and I know some of the subcontractors that you use because they've helped us as consultants for what we do.
Good.
And they are reliable. They do what they say they're going to do on the schedule. Typically speaking, things do happen. And when that does happen, they'll give you as much notice when they find out.
Yeah.
Something happened. It's not going to be here. It's going to be there. We need to move the schedule. No problem.
Yeah.
Other people that I've found are not on our team is because their schedule is too far out, unreasonable, or their services I've seen are not good enough.
Right.
And we don't partner with anybody that's not up to our standards.
Absolutely. Because you are who you work with. So you have to be careful on who you work with and how they could be a reflection of you and how that could be misconstrued. You don't want that.
Yeah. Well, it's not misconstrued. It's not misconstrued because that's who you are. You've teamed with that person and they are not performing. So therefore you're responsible for that. And that's who you are.
But that's part of like being experienced and wise enough, I guess, to do your research first.
Sure.
Because in my younger days, I've made mistakes. I've hired people on that I had a good conversation with them. They seemed like a good person. And then they underperformed, which, that doesn't make them a bad person. I give people second chances, Yeah. I've had my flaws. I've had my off days, and that's okay. I think as long as people recognize when a mistake has been made.
And some people just have different levels of expectation for themselves and their performance.
Yeah. Some people just don't care. That's what you get. And you just have to learn that, then.
That's not necessarily my style.
Yeah. And you do your thing. I'll do mine. We just won't work together anymore.
And we can still be friends. We can still be cordial when we go into the public. We can still have a good time. We can still have great conversations. We just don't have the same style of performance.
And that's okay too. I have plenty of friends who I love to go and have dinner with them, hang out with them, but we don't do business.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And at the same time, they probably don't want to do business with you, or they probably don't want to do business with me because our expectations are different than what theirs are.
Yeah.
And I can be thought of as a difficult person to somebody that doesn't perform at my standards.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that because this is what we're doing.
Same. Again, not everyone's for you and you're not for everyone.
Yeah. But it's a beautiful thing because they are for other people.
Exactly. And we get to choose who we work with. They get to choose who they work with.
Yeah. No need in forcing it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We don't want to force it, right? I've told my friends before too, I'm like, hey, you know what I do. When you need me or if you have a client that seems to be a good fit for my service, you recommend me. But do not ever feel obligated to recommend me just because we're friends. I want you to send me an ideal client of mine, not just any client. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's the difference in being, to me, well, let me say it this way. A lot of people are very money driven. And they think that they have to serve everybody to get money.
Correct.
And what I found is when I built a relationship and I treated people properly, that money was actually better. That was better money. That
Correct.
Paid more because people valued me.
Exactly.
We were efficient in what we did to be able to help them. And they actually paid probably the same as market value, but it was more beneficial for me to stay in my lane.
Correct. Absolutely. And when you find an ideal client that you do good work with, they tend to refer you more of them. Right?
Yes. Other
so
ideal
it's called
clients.
attraction, right? So when you have one ideal client, it kind of starts multiplying, right?
Yeah. So if there's one thing that you could tell your younger self, not that you're that old now.
Yeah, but
one thing that you could tell your younger or less aware self, what would that be?
My mantra is give yourself and others grace. For years, I've been such a perfectionist. I don't turn in a project until it's completely done, or I'm not going to make this call until I have everything done, or I, get upset with myself if things didn't go perfectly. And I had to remind myself, you can't live like that anymore. It makes you an anxious person. It can also do the opposite. if you don't turn in something just because it's not perfect yet, you're missing deadlines. And
which is worse than turning in something that's 98%?
I think it can be, because sometimes you don't know that something needs work on until you turn it in. For example, let's say I have clients and, I do weekly updates with them and things like that, right? So let's say we meet this week and then we talk about what next week's goals are, right? And then next week I give them an update on how those goals went and whatever. It's better that I update them on the scheduled time that we have our scheduled meetings. And even if my updates aren't complete, sometimes they're like, oh, I love it just the way that is already. And then you're like, oh, okay, so that I don't need to do that other thing yet. No. This is a lot already. We're good.
Yeah. Have you ever seen yourself going in a little different direction than what they expected? And since maybe you didn't put as much effort going into a different direction, you could make course correction to help them? Yeah,
I think so.
So open line of communication between both parties is critical?
Oh, absolutely. And, when things fall through the cracks, which they will because we're humans, have that communication immediately, have that conversation immediately. And sometimes the client actually was like, oh, that worked out better. It's okay that we didn't get this interview that we were wanting to this week because, I wasn't ready. Let's push it for next week. Okay, great. But had I, been scrambling to do something and then booked it and thinking I'm doing the right thing and they're like, oh, actually, I meant to tell you I wasn't ready for that. You know what I mean? But I think it's because I have ideal clients who are very open with me, and they'll tell me how things are going, and I check in with them, and I always say, hey, be honest. How are things going? What more can I do to make life better for you? Or am I booking you for too much? Or, do I need to step back a little bit? That kind of thing.
Nice. So give yourself grace and those people around you grace. Mm-hmm. Don't expect perfectionism in the way that you might have understood perfectionism. Know that perfection might be living life in the flow instead of trying to force something to exist.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when I say give your others graces, I used to be such an overthinker. And if you would say something to me, I would think, oh my gosh, he's mad at me. He didn't say it in a happy tone, or he didn't use an exclamation point. He used a period. I used to overthink everything.
You're talking about in a text or an email?
Yeah. You know how it is.
Tone can be misconstrued.
Totally. And that's
especially felt from the last conversation that you think something might have been misunderstood, and then they send you something and it's like, you're reading it different than they wrote it?
Yeah, and that's why I'm so big on either meeting in person or...
at least on Zoom, facial expressions.
Exactly, right? Because a text or an email can be read in so many different ways and interpreted so differently. But, back to giving others grace, somebody could have just had an off day and you happen to be that first person they talk to after getting an upset phone, an upsetting phone call, anything like that. And then they were just short with you. And here you are thinking, oh, they're mad at me. I did something.
Yeah, what did I do?
Yeah.
And then you go back in and you try to self-reflect on everything that you did, how your tone was and everything else. And it was never about you to start.
Or you do the same thing to them. Well, you were cold to me the other day, and now I'm going to be cold to you. And now they're thinking,
that's not
what
my
did
response.
I do?
My response is always self-reflection and how I could have interacted differently with that person to engage them better.
Well, I try to nip it in the bud and say, hey, the other day, excuse me if I'm misinterpreting this. You seemed a little off with me. Is it something that I did, or were you just having an off day? How can I support you?
Have you never had anybody get upset about you doing that?
No.
Wow.
No, I never have.
I have done that, and they took it and ran with it.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Well, then,
yeah,
that's on them, not on you.
I have had that experience that, we had a little bit of friction the other day. I don't know what's going on. What did I do something to offend you, or was it just your... I'm like, whoa, hey, okay, I get it.
Wow. That's when I would apologize and say, that's on me for misreading it. I'm so sorry, but I'm glad to know that it wasn't anything between us.
Yeah.
And if they still don't take it in the way that it should have been taken in a positive manner, then
maybe that's not a good relationship.
yeah.
Maybe you can see them later.
Exactly. I'll see you later, but we won't be hanging out much. You know what I mean? But no, like, I've always been very grateful when people say, oh my gosh, you're right. I didn't even realize I was short with you that morning. And it was because my doctor just called and rescheduled my appointment again. And now I got to, rearrange my day, and I didn't mean to take it out on you. Okay, cool. Well, we're cool then. And I'm sorry that happened. Let me know how I can support you. Yeah. I have some doctors I can recommend if you'd like, or, something like that.
Yeah.
Then now nobody's wondering what happened.
Clear the air.
Yeah.
Clear the air.
Yeah.
Have you found it better to do that later or right then?
I think it depends on the situation. Like, how serious is it? Did they seem really distraught? How well do you know them? You know what I mean?
But you help people tell their stories, and I would say that this would probably be important to be able to help people tell their stories, is to be able to understand how to interact with people.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm really big on learning my clients' personality types and style of communication, right? Because everybody's different. Some people want me to email them bullet points straight. Just let me know what you need from me. Send it to me and I'll have my, my team send it back to you. Bam.
Yeah.
Cool.
Other people need a book.
Other people actually just want to have a conversation on the phone. And they say, hey, can you call me? I'm not quite understanding what you need, or sure. I'll give you a call.
Yeah. I'm bullet points followed up by a phone conversation, or maybe even preluded and followed with bullet points.
That's fantastic.
Other people need books. Is that right? Like page after page after page of detail.
Yeah. And I try to meet people where they're at, but I also try to teach them, my communication style as well, so that they don't misunderstand anything.
Yeah. Are you a phone, a text, or an email?
I'm more of a phone, but if you need more of a phone for a conversation, but if you wanting me to do things for you, I'd rather you send me an email of those things. But I prefer that phone call to kind of give me a little bit of background of what you're going to send me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I think that we're similar.
Yeah.
And then if it's just something real short, a text is okay?
Yes, absolutely.
10 words or less?
Yes. Please don't write me a story.
On text?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I love voice messages too. I do a lot of voice messages because, again, it's quick and you can really hear the tone.
Yeah, I had somebody in the other day. You're talking about voice text messages?
Mm-hmm. I love those.
Instead of like the old school voicemail where you're leaving after the beep.
Correct.
You're talking about in a text.
Mm-hmm. I like those. I like those a lot because you can engage with it more. Like a voice mail, I can't heart it or reply to it, Mm-hmm. And a lot of the voice memos, it's typed out for you. You can read it, mm-hmm. but then you can also listen to it while you're driving. My husband and I do a lot of those, like if we're driving or he's traveling and our schedules are not necessarily aligning for, a phone call and how your day's been like that. We always have a phone call before bed, at the end of the day when we're wrapping things up, but maybe during the day and as we're driving in between meetings or something. Hey, honey, hope you're having a great day. I just dropped off dry cleaning and, something like that. Yeah. It's easier.
Yeah. Just to check in. Yeah, nice voice, and you get to hear their voice. It's nice to hear each other's voice,
right? Especially for a significant other. It's like, I love hearing from my husband, even if it's just, have a great day, honey, I love you. I love those.
Yeah, very important. Human connection in intimate relationships, and to me, business relationships should be leaning toward intimacy.
Yeah. Because of the connection. Exactly. It's the connection. Yeah.
Who's your inner circle? And how do you incorporate business and personal life into the same cohesive person?
Exactly.
Instead of trying to put different things in different boxes, just live your life and enjoy people's company as you go forward, helping each other do something that you couldn't do by yourselves.
Right. I mean, it starts on a personal level, getting to know someone, right? And then once you know them, it's so much easier to know how to send people their way. how to send them their ideal client. You know, for example, I have tons of realtor friends, tons of people who buy and sell, help people buy and sell houses.
Yeah, you have a lot of them. So how do you choose which one to send who to?
Exactly. I get to know them. And then when I have a friend who says, hey, I'm thinking about, you know, putting my house on the market, who do you recommend? I'm not going to send them to just any realtor. I'm going to know them enough to say, this person would be great for you because of XYZ, because, you know, you guys have similar lifestyles. You're both kind of similar age. You connect with this, or, hey, they live in your neighborhood. They would know your neighborhood really well. So that's why I try to get to know my friends and ideal partners on a personal level so I can know how to help their business grow.
Yeah. Chinh, we appreciate you coming to Tulsa Talks today.
Thank you.
I had a bit of fun with a good conversation and also a bit of bantering.
Good.
I hope that you guys enjoyed it as well and received something. This lady is focused and intentional about how she helps people. Name of her business, if she wants. Do you want the name of your business
Sure,
to be
it's
in the
just Chinh,
description?
Doan Marketing and Media.
Yeah, we'll have that in the description.
Sure.
And we'll list however many of your 4 businesses you want there.
You don't have to.
But we do want to help people connect to themselves and their surroundings with Tulsa Talks and the Complete Peace Movement.
Yes, absolutely. Again. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am.
We are here to help you discover or develop your passions, how you can use them, and why you exist. How can we help you help others better?